I am the only daughter of the Tobias family, and the price of being worth hundreds of billions was being kidnapped 3 times as a child. My father assigned me 100 bodyguards, and even going to school required an escort of 3 armored vehicles. Choose a husband to watch over you day and night. I chose the one who was the gentlest to me, Webster. But on our wedding day, he dismissed all my bodyguards. I was tied up on the rooftop, the kidnapper's knife pressed against my neck. On the other end of the phone, Webster sneered. Vanessa, are you serious? You had thugs bully Teresa. She's the victim here. Who are you putting on this act for? I just had your bodyguards protect her 24/7, so you could get a taste of what it's like to live in fear. I count the chimes from the rooftop clock. Every hour, I lose a finger. After 24 hours, my blood runs dry, and my heart dies. When I open my eyes again, I'm back on the day I had to choose a husband. The father still held those 8 photographs in his hand. This time, my fingers glided past Webster and pointed directly at the mischievous smile in the far corner. But my father said, "This person is already dead." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I stared at the 8 photos in my father's hand, my fingertips sweeping past Webster's gentle, jade-like face without hesitation, pointing directly at the one at the very bottom, a slightly darker complexion with a roguish smile. My father froze. Vanessa, didn't you like Webster the most? Why choose Xavier? I clenched my fingers tightly, my nails almost digging into my palms. Xavier, who had always excelled in sports since childhood, was also known as a notorious playboy. His skin was tanned dark from spending all his time at racetracks and nightclubs, surrounded by women each more glamorous than the last. His father looked down on him and casually assigned him a grueling job in a remote mountainous area to get rid of him. But I remember, in my past life, when I was tied up on the rooftop, my blood dripping away drop by drop, the last thing I saw as I jumped was Xavier rushing toward me like a madman. His face was filled with terror and heartache. "Him," I said, my voice trembling. The father frowned, took out his phone, and scrolled through his contacts, suddenly pausing awkwardly. He hadn't even saved Xavier's number. How ironic. These 8 were all his adopted sons. Yet Xavier didn't even deserve a note in his phone. The assistant's call came back quickly. "Chairman, Xavier was killed last month in Y Village, caught in a mudslide." Father sighed. "Vanessa, choose someone else." "Webster actually. I won't choose anyone else." I stood up abruptly, my throat tight. I don't want anyone but him. In my past life, those so-called brothers either fawned over Webster's cousin or coldly watched me become a laughingstock. Given a second chance at life, I'd rather grow old alone than be stabbed again by their hypocritical kindness. I staggered out of the office, my mind filled with Xavier's final gaze. If even he was dead, who in this world would still fight desperately for me? Suddenly, an icy hand gripped my wrist fiercely. I looked up. It was Webster. Teresa stood right beside him, her slender frame leaning slightly against him, the corners of her eyes still tinged with red, as if she had suffered the greatest injustice. Webster had a gentle expression, but the words he spoke were harsh. "Vanessa, Teresa isn't in good health. Your hot spring villa is just sitting idle. Let her go there to recuperate for a few days. She hasn't been sleeping well lately and keeps coughing." In the past, I would have softened and agreed without hesitation. But this time, I just gave them a faint glance and said, "I disagree." With that, I immediately called my assistant. "Lock the villa gates tight. Don't let any random people sneak in." Webster turned pale instantly. "Vanessa." He grabbed my wrist with a painful grip. "She's my cousin, and she'll be family to you too. Can't you be a little more understanding?" I scoffed and roughly shook off his hand. "Who said we're family?" His pupils contracted as if stung. "What's gotten into you? Just because last time Teresa wore your hairpin, your jewelry is piled all over the house. What's the harm in letting her borrow some?" Teresa timely began to sob. tears hanging precariously on her lashes. Webster, forget it. Ms. Vanessa looks down on me. I never deserved it anyway. I couldn't be bothered to watch this act any longer and turned to leave. I said no means no. Back in the room, I covered myself with the blanket and fell asleep. The dizziness of rebirth was still churning in my mind until a sharp phone ring jolted me awake. Miss. The assistant's voice came through, choked with tears. Mr. Webster barged into the villa with Miss Teresa. I couldn't stop them. All the bodyguards obey his orders. I suddenly sat up straight. Images of being kidnapped in my past life flashed before my eyes. The bodyguards who were supposed to protect me did the same, following Webster without hesitation, leaving me alone with the kidnappers. When I rushed into the villa, a bodyguard dared to stop me. Mr. Webster has ordered that no one is to disturb him. Snap. I slapped him hard across the face, eating my food while listening to others. I trembled with rage. Get out now. The moment I pushed open the inner chamber door, the sight before me froze my blood. Amid the misty hot spring vapors, Teresa lay limply against the pool's edge. Her cheeks flushed unnaturally. Cousin, I feel so dizzy. Before the words had fully left her lips, her body went limp as she began sliding toward the bottom of the water. Webster leaped into the pool without hesitation and pulled her out in one swift motion. Water droplets trailed down the sharp line of his clenched jaw, falling onto Teresa's exposed shoulder. Webster, I interrupted coldly. I told you, you're not welcome here. His body stiffened, the Teresa in his arms trembling slightly. Vanessa. A flash of panic crossed his eyes before being replaced by anger. Must you be so aggressive? She almost fainted. Can't you stop being so harsh? Teresa suddenly broke free from his embrace and with a thud, knelt before me, her forehead hitting the ground heavily. Miss, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Blood streamed down her pale cheeks. Suddenly, she rushed over and hugged my leg, but the next second, as if pushed, she fell back into the pool. She struggled painfully in the water. Help! I'm cramping. Webster jumped in again to carry her out, and when he came ashore, the look he gave me was full of disgust. Vanessa, you've really gone too far. He suddenly reached out and pushed me into the pool. Bang! My arm slammed hard against the pool wall, instantly bruising. If you bully Teresa like this again, he said, holding the trembling Teresa, his voice icy, I won't marry you. Watching their retreating figures, I climbed out of the pool in disarray. Everyone who let them in today, get out of here. While changing clothes, the assistant hurried over. Miss, we've found Xavier's clue. I rushed over to the place overnight. The mountain road destroyed by the storm was muddy and difficult to traverse. Just as I settled down in the town, suddenly a pair of large hands grabbed me. The person abruptly pulled me into a dark alley, their warm palm tightly covering my mouth. I looked up in terror, meeting a pair of eyes as bright as stars. Xavier. He hastily let go, his face beneath the mask flushing crimson. Young mistress, why have you come to a place like this? Aren't you supposed to be dead? My voice trembled. He scratched his head sheepishly, revealing that adorable little canine tooth. There's a mole in this project, so I faked my death in the mudslide to flush them out. You know this trick too. I was a bit surprised. His smile suddenly dimmed. Did I disappoint the young lady? Have you always thought I was stupid? The heart suddenly ached sharply. I grabbed his hand anxiously. Listen, you must come back before the 8th for the wedding. His body stiffened, his eyes instantly dimming. All right, I'll definitely be at your wedding. Idiot. I stomped my foot in frustration. I was trying to. Boss, the mole is getting away, came the shout from the distance. He took 2 panicked steps back. Miss, it might be dangerous here. You should go back. I'll definitely attend the wedding. Xavier, his hurried figure soon disappeared at the alley's entrance. I stood there, overwhelmed by a flood of thoughts. In my previous life, he was the one among the 8 who received the least attention from me. Everyone says he's all brawn and no brains. only hanging out in nightclubs and the outdoors. Unlike Webster, who's always impeccably dressed in a suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses and strategizing behind the scenes. Yet the most marginal tasks and the trickiest relationships are always dumped on Xavier to handle. But looking back now, these so-called fringe businesses had to deal with the most troublesome characters from all walks of life. Without the ability to be all things to all people, how could one possibly handle them properly? On the way back, I had someone remake the digital invitation and sent it to Xavier. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that the phone finally lit up with a notification. Miss, the groom's name is written wrong. Remember to correct it. The typing indicator above the dialog box flickered for a long time. And finally, another sentence was added. Don't worry, I will definitely come to the wedding. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. There's no point saying anything now. He wouldn't believe it anyway. Better wait until he returns to explain face to face. The phone kept vibrating. Webster sent message after message. Teresa needs your apology. Don't be so willful. I tapped the screen and deleted his number without hesitation, knowing that Xavier was alive and far more outstanding than I had imagined. My mood became unprecedentedly bright. I began preparing for the wedding. That day, as I pushed open the glass door of the bridal shop, a pungent wave of perfume assaulted my senses. Cousin, do I look good in this? Teresa's cloying voice instantly gave me goosebumps. She was blatantly wearing the wedding dress my mother had custom-made for me, admiring herself repeatedly in the mirror. Webster gazed at her tenderly. Teresa, you look beautiful in anything. Oh, stop it, cousin always knows how to sweet talk. Teresa coquettishly twirled around, the scent of cheap perfume permeating the air. I suppressed my rage and stepped forward. Webster's expression visibly froze the moment he saw me. He instinctively stepped forward, blocking Teresa, his voice deliberately gentle. Vanessa, don't misunderstand. Teresa's health is poor. She might not make it to the wedding day. She just wanted to experience wearing a wedding dress. Teresa coughed. I coldly interrupted. Take it off. Teresa immediately reddened her eyes. Miss, I'm sorry. I just admire you too much. She tremblingly grabbed Webster's sleeve. It's all my fault. Don't blame cousin. Webster darkened his face. Anyway, you'll marry me sooner or later. What does it matter if she wears it? Can't you let her be happy for once? Take it off. I repeated word by word, my gaze sweeping over the trembling shop assistant. When did my reserved wedding dress become available for others to try on? Two shop assistants were flustered as they helped Teresa out of her wedding dress, leaving red marks on her fair arms from the tight fabric. Teresa sobbed pitifully. I'm sorry. I'm too lowly to deserve such fine clothes. Her legs suddenly gave way, and she collapsed toward the floor. Webster dashed forward to catch her, then turned and roared at me. Vanessa, are you happy now? Disinfect it 3 times. I frowned in disgust. Don't leave even a trace of the smell. Teresa covered her face and rushed out. Webster glared at me with a livid face, eventually slamming the door on his way out. That evening, the assistant mysteriously leaned in and whispered in my ear, Miss, guess what? That Teresa, who's always pretending to be delicate, got hit by a car today. They say her leg is broken. It serves her right, she exclaimed excitedly, gesturing wildly. She knew full well that Webster was your fiancé, yet she kept throwing herself at him all day, pretending to be some innocent little flower. Disgusting. I gently swirled the red wine in my glass, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. Who told you Webster was my fiancé? The assistant's eyes widened in shock, nearly dropping the fruit platter in her hands. Miss, you mean, go tell the wedding planner to change the groom's name, I said, taking a sip of wine. Replace it with Xavier. That's great. The assistant clapped excitedly. Miss, that Webster might seem decent, but he lacks boundaries, always hanging around with Teresa. He's just a people pleaser. I couldn't help but smile. Even the assistant could see it so clearly. How could I have been so blind in my past life? Love truly clouds one's vision. At this thought, I let out a soft sigh. Early the next morning, as soon as I stepped out of the company's entrance, everything suddenly went dark. A sack was abruptly pulled over my head. Who? Let me go. I struggled desperately. The other person roughly shoved me into the car, my back slamming hard against the door, making me gasp in pain. A familiar terror instantly swept over me. Memories of being kidnapped in my past life flooding back like a tide. Please, I'll give you any amount of money. My voice trembled uncontrollably, tears soaking the blindfold. Only an oppressive silence answered me, until that familiar scent drifted into my nostrils. Webster's signature cologne. My heart plummeted to the depths. You. What do you actually want? Someone asked me to teach you a proper lesson. He deliberately lowered his voice, even though I had already decided not to marry him. His actions at this moment still made my heart ache so much I could barely breathe. Bang! The iron rod struck my leg with a heavy blow, the excruciating pain making my vision go dark. My heart felt as if it were being torn apart, but I endured the pain without exposing his pretense. I huddled in the corner of the carriage, tears silently soaking the burlap sack. In the last moment before losing consciousness, I heard his icy voice. Remember this lesson. The iron rod struck my leg with a dull thud. Once, twice, 3 times. 15 strikes in total. The sound of bones shattering was clearly audible. I passed out from the pain and was thrown in front of Tobias's house. The hospital reeked of the pungent smell of disinfectant. From the VIP ward next door came Teresa's voice. Cousin, you're with me every day. It must be so exhausting. My heart aches as if it's been crushed. Webster, to vent your anger for Teresa. You could actually go this far. Daughter. My father rushed in and held me tightly, his voice trembling. Who did this to you? Dad will make sure they suffer worse than death. Dad. It's fine. I forced a smile through the pain. Just help me replace the bodyguards. By the way, Xavier is still alive. After we get married, he'll protect me too. After father left, I leaned on my cane and walked to the window. In the garden below, Webster was spinning Teresa around. She whispered something in his ear that made the tips of his ears turn red, and he smiled so tenderly. It was a smile I had never received. The day before the wedding, Xavier arrived in a hurry, still carrying the scent of earth on him. He carefully took out a warm, smooth piece of jade from his bosom. For the young mistress, a wedding gift. The groom has finally returned. I smiled as I accepted the jade, deliberately raising my voice. Xavier stood frozen in place, his eyes instantly reddening, lips trembling but unable to speak. The assistant quietly told me Webster had been missing for days. I sneered. He was waiting for me to bow my head and admit my mistake, waiting for me to cry and beg him to come back and marry me. Unfortunately, his clever plan was miscalculated. At night, my phone suddenly vibrated. Teresa sent a video where she and Webster were entangled together. A disgraceful sight. But soon, the video was retracted. Pathetic. I sneered as I turned off my phone, finding such tricks utterly laughable. Standing by the window, I saw Xavier alone under the starry sky. Looking up at my window, he waved at me, his smile warm and resolute. At this moment, my heart felt an unprecedented sense of calm. On the morning of the wedding day, my phone rang. As long as you apologize to Teresa, I'll come marry you right away. Webster's voice remained condescending. No need. I decisively hung up the phone, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. At the wedding venue, the guests whispered among themselves. Webster hasn't arrived yet. Could it be that the wedding is going to be cancelled? I turned a deaf ear, holding on to Xavier's arm as we walked down the red carpet. His arm muscles were tense, yet he carefully controlled his strength, afraid of hurting me. Let us congratulate Xavier and the eldest daughter of the Tobias family. The MC's voice resounded throughout the venue. At that very moment, the banquet hall doors were flung open violently. The belated Webster stood at the entrance, his face deathly pale, the bouquet in his hand falling to the ground with a sharp thud. I curled my lips into a smile and, under his disbelieving gaze, took the initiative to press my lips against Xavier's. Webster's face instantly turned as pale as paper. He staggered back a step. His eyes filled with disbelief. He stared fixedly at my and Xavier's clasped hands. Vanessa, you. At that moment, his phone began vibrating wildly. Teresa sobbed through the phone. Cousin, come downstairs now. Something terrible has happened. Webster gave me a deep look, his eyes a turbulent mix of shock, fury, and unwillingness. He turned and rushed downstairs. The moment he pushed open the banquet hall doors, he froze as if struck by lightning. The large screen was looping a video of him entangled in bed with Teresa. The footage so clear even the mole on his collarbone was unmistakably visible. This can't be. Webster trembled all over. What's going on? I just had too much to drink. How could this video exist? Teresa rushed over with tear-stained cheeks. Cousin, you were drunk that night. I couldn't push you away no matter how hard I tried. She deliberately revealed the red marks on her neck. This was my first time. Before she could finish speaking, a swarm of reporters surged in, camera flashes blinding them in a frenzy. Teresa seized the moment to snuggle into Webster's arms, her voice just loud enough for all the reporters to hear. Cousin, you have to take responsibility for me. Webster's legs went weak, nearly collapsing to his knees. He abruptly pushed Teresa away, rushed onto the stage to turn off the video, then frantically ran back upstairs to the wedding venue. Alas, it was too late. The ceremony upstairs had concluded, and Xavier and I were toasting the guests. Webster tried to rush over but was stopped by security. Sir, please do not disturb the newlyweds. His phone kept vibrating. The screen flooded with push notifications of news. Tobias family department manager acts lewdly while drunk. Takes cousin's virginity by force. Webster scandal exposed. Vanessa. He called out to me across the crowd, his voice filled with desperation. Listen to me. Let me explain. My father strode over and delivered a resounding slap across his face. Webster, I was so wrong about you. Father's voice was thick with disappointment. From today onward, you're being transferred to the administrative department. As for this mess, father looked at the sobbing Teresa with disgust. Go get the marriage certificate tomorrow. Webster looked ashen-faced, while Teresa clung tightly to his arm. Cousin, now everyone knows about us. You can't abandon me. Xavier timely wrapped his arm around my waist and whispered in my ear. Wife, are you tired? Let me massage your shoulders. Watching Webster in such a wretched state, I gently leaned against Xavier's shoulder. On the first night after our wedding, I sat at the dressing table removing my makeup when I saw Xavier standing at the bedroom door through the mirror, his fingers nervously rubbing the cuff of his suit sleeve. Xavier, I turned around. You've been absent-minded ever since the wedding ended. What's really going on? He took a deep breath, as if gathering all his courage. Young miss, I know you've always liked Webster. Marrying me was just to spite him, wasn't it? I raised an eyebrow at him. He continued, although I've been very happy spending this time with you. If you two are just having a minor quarrel, it's better to clear things up sooner rather than later. As he spoke, he began packing his luggage. I'm going back to the countryside tomorrow anyway. It's not like we've registered our marriage. Pfft. I couldn't help but laugh, standing up and walking over to him, gently pressing my fingertip against his lips. Xavier, I gazed into his startled eyes. I truly want to marry you. His pupils suddenly dilated, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. But what about all those rumors about me before? I've looked into all of them. I pulled him to sit by the bed. The mining project in the Northwest. You secured it in just 3 months. The port dispute in the South was also resolved by you. As for those so-called scandals, I chuckled lightly. They were just you entertaining clients. Xavier's eyes gradually brightened, like stars suddenly lit up in the night sky. He excitedly grasped my hand and said, Speaking of the Northwest, I actually have a new idea. That abandoned industrial zone could totally be transformed into. Watching him animatedly explain his business plan, My heart melted into a puddle. As he got more into it, he casually loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his toned forearms. The way he scribbled and sketched on paper was particularly captivating. Before I knew it, it was already 2 a.m., and I was so sleepy that I leaned against his shoulder. In a daze, I felt him gently pick me up and carefully place me on the bed. "Sleep now, my lady," he whispered, pressing a light kiss on my forehead. "Starting tomorrow, I'll make sure you know that choosing me was the best decision you've ever made in your life." The morning sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains into the bedroom. As soon as I opened my eyes, Xavier walked in carrying breakfast, his expression somewhat complicated. "Webster has been waiting downstairs all night." I threw on my robe and stepped onto the balcony, only to see Webster standing in the garden, his suit wrinkled and dark circles heavy under his eyes. When he saw me appear, he immediately looked up. "Vanessa, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about." I turned to enter the house. "Wait." His voice was hoarse. "That day, I was drunk, but you shouldn't have made the video public. Teresa, she's still a girl after all. What about her reputation if you do this?" I interrupted with a cold laugh. "You've already slept together. Why pretend to be a gentleman now?" Webster suddenly shouted loudly. "You clearly love me. Why take revenge this way? Since childhood, I've been the only one in your eyes. That was my blindness." I looked down at him coldly. "When you broke my leg for Teresa, did you ever consider my feelings?" His face instantly turned deathly pale as he staggered back a step. How did you know?" "Get out." I drew the curtains shut. "Your dear Teresa is still waiting for you at home." Webster was forced to marry Teresa. Meanwhile, Xavier and I flew directly to the Maldives. Under the azure sky and turquoise sea, Xavier finally confessed the feelings he had harbored for years. "Remember when you fell in the garden at 15? Xavier gently touched the long-healed scar on my leg. "I was the first to find you. But when Webster arrived, you never looked at anyone else again." My heart clenched into a tight knot. It turned out that while I was chasing Webster's figure, there had always been such a burning gaze behind me. During the honeymoon, Xavier proved his love through actions. Even on the day we returned home, I was still sore and leaning against his embrace. Just after getting off the plane, a dark figure suddenly rushed over. Snap! Webster's slap landed hard across my face. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling. Why would you do this to me?" Xavier instantly shielded me behind him as bodyguards rushed forward and pinned Webster to the ground. He lay sprawled on the floor, screaming hysterically. "Vanessa, where have you taken Teresa?" I stared in shock at his contorted face. "What nonsense are you talking about? She was kidnapped this morning. The kidnappers are demanding 30 million. Webster had bloodshot eyes. "And you just happened to return to the country today. What kind of coincidence is that?" A chill ran down my spine. Memories of being kidnapped in my past life flooded back like a tide. That rooftop, that knife, the dripping blood. I suddenly grabbed Xavier's arm. "I know a place." Along the way, Webster kept interrogating from the back seat, still claiming it wasn't you. "Then how do you know the location?" I didn't answer. The car stopped in front of the familiar building. Webster was eager to rush to the rooftop when I grabbed him. "Wait." At that moment, voices of conversation came from the rooftop. "Didn't you say Webster obeys your every word? Why hasn't he arrived yet?" I stood at the rooftop door, my blood seemingly frozen in my veins. The hoarse voice, the sinister laughter, they were identical to those of the person who kidnapped and tortured me in my past life. I clutched Xavier's hand tightly, and he gripped mine in return. "What's the rush?" Teresa's smug voice came through. "He'll definitely think it was Vanessa who did it. Perfect timing to make that bitch pay." Webster's body suddenly stiffened, his face turning deathly pale. A terrifying thought suddenly struck me. Could the kidnapping in my past life have also been Teresa's doing? The memory sliced through the fog like lightning. During my kidnapping in the past life, the kidnapper had said, "Blame yourself for offending the wrong person." At the time, I thought they meant Webster. But now it seems it was Teresa. The kidnapper's crude laughter continued. You're just as useless. Can't even get money after getting married. Webster is nothing but the Tobias family's lapdog. The money's all in the old man's hands. Teresa sneered. If it weren't for getting close to the Tobias family, then why don't you seduce the old man instead? Become that woman's stepmother. The kidnapper's wild laughter echoed across the empty rooftop. Webster staggered back a step, as if stabbed through the chest. At this moment, the kidnapper glanced at the time and took out his phone to make a call. Webster's phone began to vibrate, his hands trembling. He fumbled for his phone. The kidnapper's number flashed on the screen, yet he hesitated to answer.
Kill you. I looked at him quietly. I see. She was badly injured herself, and the child is already gone. I was about to leave Webster when he suddenly became agitated. His eyes filled with complex emotions. Regret, pain, and sorrow. I remember everything now. The day you were kidnapped in our past life. His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. My heart suddenly clenched. Did he actually remember? Webster abruptly threw off the blanket, roughly pulled out the 4-needle, and his knees heavily hit the cold floor tiles as he knelt before me. Vanessa, I'm truly sorry. I was blinded before. I was blind in heart and mind, and I hurt you. My throat felt a bit sore, and I finally couldn't help but speak. Webster, do you have any idea how desperate I was at that time? Memories flooded back, as if I had returned to that rooftop. My fingers were chopped off one by one. I unconsciously raised my right hand, the one that remained intact in this life, yet it still seemed to recall the excruciating pain. I waited for 24 hours. But you took all my bodyguards away to go shopping with your cousin. Webster suddenly looked up, his face deathly pale. His lips trembled, but not a single word came out. Later, the pain became unbearable. My voice suddenly grew calm. I jumped from the rooftop. The air in the hospital room froze. At that time, I gently pressed my abdomen. There was a 3-month-old baby inside me. I hadn't had the chance to tell you yet. Webster's expression instantly collapsed, his entire body frozen in place as if struck by lightning. Then, he suddenly raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. The crisp sound echoed through the hospital room. He didn't stop, hitting himself again and again, as if determined to beat himself to death. Soon, his cheeks swelled up, and blood seeped from the corners of his mouth. Vanessa, I'm sorry. His voice was broken. Please, forgive me. He knelt and shuffled forward, trying to grab the hem of my clothes. I took a step back, avoiding his touch. Forgive you. I heard myself let out a cold laugh. Webster, do you know how it feels to have your fingers chopped off? Do you know how desperate I was when the kidnappers called every hour? And you never answered. It was raining that night. I continued, my voice so soft it was as if I were telling someone else's story. I dragged my mutilated hand as I crawled to the edge of the rooftop. It was cold. So cold. But the thought that I wouldn't have to wait for your calls anymore after death actually felt like relief. Webster let out a howl that sounded inhuman, curling into a ball. His forehead pressed against the ground as he kept banging it. Vanessa, I'm sorry. I'm a monster. I killed you and our child. Vanessa, please, forgive me. Please, I'll change. I promise. Just give me a chance to make it up to you. He raised his bloodshot eyes, his lips trembling uncontrollably. In this lifetime, I swear I'll never again. There is no this lifetime. I cut him off. The day you chose to believe your cousin over me. It was over between us. In both lifetimes. I turned and pushed open the hospital room door, his heart-wrenching scream echoing behind me. Vanessa, don't go. Please. Every hour, I lose a finger. Listen. In the hospital ward, Webster's stifled sobs came intermittently. A year later, at my daughter's full moon celebration, I received a package. Inside were Webster's entire life savings and a yellowed photograph. In the photo, 12-year-old me was smiling as I handed Webster a cake, while in the corner, Xavier held a pile of gifts, his eyes secretly watching me. What are you looking at? Xavier asked as he approached with their daughter in his arms. Nothing much. I heard that Webster's legs were completely paralyzed, and he went to a small town in South America where it rains all year round, in a wheelchair, and my life. At last, has become as soft and complete as the daughter in my arms at this moment.